Good morning. I'm going to do a handful of short videos this morning to talk about different topics related to the Mercury retrograde, related to astrology in general. And the first thing I want to talk about this morning is archetypes and astrology. So what are archetypes and what does it have to do with astrology? So archetypes are part of our collective experience. Archetypes have names like the wounded child or the mother or the victim or the saboteur or the procrastinator. I'm naming ones I'm working on myself. What else? There's hundreds of different archetypal identities that we all embody. It's like to some extent at different times. So when I was working with some women this week doing a little bit of a releasing ritual because we just had that full moon eclipse, and we're working towards the new moon solar eclipse. And this is a really big time to release. And so we were talking about releasing, some archetypal patterns. And I really wanted to emphasize that, we cannot banish archetypes because archetypes live through the collective. They're like a live energy. So let's use the saboteur as an example. At doing a ritual to banish the saboteur really is probably just setting myself up for failure because you can't banish an archetype. Instead, we want to look at the saboteur. There's obvious ways that I've known about for many, many years that the saboteur works in my life. Like, this is a great, just really mundane example is like you're exercising or working out, you just get off the elliptical or get home from a run and then you go and like binge eat on donuts or something, like that's self-sabotage, right? You're on the one hand, you're trying to do these good things for yourself and then you're sabotaging it on the other. Well, that's very obvious, right? But in the shadow aspects, they're not so obvious. The ways that we sabotage ourselves, that's why they're called shadows. They're in the background of they're running. These are like programs that are running in the background of our life. And during this eclipse portal, as I'm doing releasing rituals with friends and doing like composting rituals where we're trying to, to digest, alchemize, process some of the shadow elements that are being dredged up during this time. You find new ways that you have sabotaged maybe your relationship or ways that you always, pick a fight during certain uncomfortable activities, or, there's different ways that we sabotage ourselves. So instead of saying banishing the saboteur from my life, even though maybe my conscious mind is like, oh, let's just banish that, instead we have to, give a hug to the saboteur and go, okay, what need is this filling for me? What, why, where is the saboteur? And take that saboteur in and hug it and hold it and absorb it. And instead of trying to banish things, let's digest it. Let's integrate it. Let's take them in. So the archetypes are this like kind of living energy. And how does that relate to astrology? Well, the planets and even the points, some of the astrological points like the South Node and North Node, sort of embody certain type of archetypal energy in their purest form. So, right now we're talking about a lot about Mars and Mercury. They're very active in the zodiac right now. That we're feeling their energies on a collective level. And so what does that mean? How do they represent? And Mercury represents the archetype of the communicator. So spreading news, sharing information. The imperative of Mercury is to share information. It's not necessarily a moral imperative because Mercury can spread lies as well. That's where the trickster energy comes in. Mercury is just like passing the information. And also, Mercury in the body, in medical astrology, Mercury represents the nerves. Well, the nerves are communicating from the brain down to the muscles, or it's sending, or from the muscles back up to the brain, like it's giving information. So um, the archetype of Mercury is the messenger or the communicator, or it's of the mental realm of the mind, of thinking, speaking, communicating. And then Mars, we know as the god of war, but Mars is also the initiator. Mars wants to act. So where Mercury kind of lives in the mental realm and thinking and processing and sharing information, Mars kind of lives in the physical realm, in the embodied realm. Is like, what are we going to do about it? It's like, what do you do? And so this is a way that archetypes and astrology kind of mirror each other, I guess you could say, is we use archetypal language to explain the planetary energies because they're relatable to all of us. I mean, we all have a communicator in us. Maybe your Mercury is in a really strong seated place in your chart. Maybe you're a Gemini or a Virgo, and Mercury is the ruler of your sun. And so maybe communication is a major feature of your life. But perhaps you have Mercury square to Saturn in your chart, which might make communication very blocked for you in life, where Saturn is the archetype of, oh, the disciplinarian, the one that's checking to make sure you followed the steps, step by step by step. And sometimes if Mercury is square to Saturn in a chart, you feel blockages or stoppages to your communication. And maybe it's just that Saturn is always, pointing at your Mercury and saying, well, did you take the right steps? Did you go step by step by step? So anyways, I wanted to just kind of pop on and do quick. I don't want to stay on too long because I've got a few different other videos. I want to do who is Mercury, a little deeper dive. I wanted to talk about archetypes though, because we do use archetypal language in astrology to kind of understand these energies. And I also wanted to kind of highlight the fact that we can't banish negative things from our life. I mean, I think there can be release of old patterns. We can alchemize them and release them, but if we try to repress or push them, they just get submerged and come out in another form. Most people know that by now, but it's still hard to work with it. Because when we have uncomfortable feelings, we have feelings of anger, we have feelings of jealousy, we have feelings of failure. We have feelings of rejection, abandonment, all these feelings. We just want to get rid of those feelings. We don't really want to sit with them and alchemize them and feel them and actually get information from them. We just want to go, those feelings are bad, and get rid of them. But I'm encouraging you during this time of release, we've got till April 8th, when we're going to want to, we're kind of in a cleansing phase right now of the moon cycle. On April 8th, we're having this powerful solar eclipse, full moon. And at that point, I think we want to have done a lot of our house cleaning. Now, cycles all repeat in astrology. It's not like this is the last chance we have to do our spring cleaning, but the energy is pushing us right now with Chiron in the mix, bringing up our old wounds. So if you're feeling like your old wounds and your old trauma dramas are coming up, there's a reason. This moon is going to be conjunct Chiron on April 8th. So that's bringing up, and Chiron as an archetype is the wounded healer. And what that means is that it's usually an area of weakness in our life, maybe often from, childhood, early childhood, where we felt abandoned, where we felt rejected, where we felt maybe ostracized, where, those feelings that sort of are seem to be inflicted upon us as children that turn into patterns as we grow, adaptive patterns that become maybe maladaptive, patterns of protection. When you're a child, you learn how to protect yourself whatever way you can and without conscious understanding of what you're doing. But as an adult, these patterns keep replaying in our adult relationships, and they're in the shadow. So this time of the eclipse portal between these two moons, and really we're kind of setting the stage for bigger life cycles. All eclipse cycles are tied into like a 6-month cycle, a 9-year cycle, and an 18-year cycle. And if you're wondering what happened with the last time, go look back at 2005 to see what was happening during this particular eclipse, because these eclipses have the flavor of the sign that they're going through. So the eclipses are happening in, well, this April 8th eclipse is happening in Aries. And so the last time the eclipse happened in the North Node eclipse happened in Aries was in 2005. And then the nodes would have been flipped 9 years ago, whatever year that was. I didn't do the math, but so there's an 18-year cycle, there's a 9-year cycle, and then there's also a 6-month cycle, because the seeds that you're planting at this full moon have those kind of energy signatures in it. So like 6 months. So when you're planting your seeds on April 8th, think about 6 months, 8 years, 9 years, and 18 years. Like set your intentions, like visualize, please visualize a future where we're living in much more equality and a happier time. Where we're working together and we've fixed a lot of the systems that we're in now. Just putting that plug in there because that's what I'm hoping for. Anyways, I just wanted to do a real quick video on archetypes and astrology, and how these things weave themselves in and through our collective consciousness and unconsciousness. Thank you. See you again soon.